Shahrazad, for your presentation. First of all, for me, it is a pleasure and an honor to be back in CyberCamp, and I'm in my hometown in Santander, and I really wanted to be here. It seems there's a bomb or something. And I'd also like to congratulate all the Alisal school kids, because they've been achieving some very interesting things for our region, so they deserve our support. So congratulations, kids. I hope you keep on working hard. And what am I going to be speaking of? Okay, this presentation, UAC-A-Mola, or UAC-A-Mola, well, this deals with UAC bypass. We've been studying this under Windows over the last year. We developed a tool that allows us to keep on doing research and keep on detecting and exploiting, and the framework will be able to mitigate some of these UAC bypass. But before this, I need to tell you what UAC bypass is about and why it is important. And I'm going to script this presentation because well, my introduction, rather. Let's skip it. So this is what we're going to be addressing, what UAC is and what UAC bypass is. Why does it matter? The different types of UAC bypasses, not all, but the most common ones or the most powerful ones. And then what is UAC-A-Mola? What is it, and how can you download it, and how can you play with the modules, and what's the architecture like? And finally, I'm going to be giving you some outcomes, some results from the different studies of the tool. So what's UAC? UAC is this message. All of you here, whenever you've interacted with Windows, have come up with this, have found this, have come across this. Who hasn't? I'm sure you've all seen this yes and no message. So this is UAC, user account control, and this is a security system of Windows under Microsoft under Windows Vista. So whenever there's a privilege elevation service is requested, or these rights are requested, if you authorize it, the process will be run under that context, and this will be done with the maximum amount of rights in the system. Anything can be done. But Windows 10 has another thing, because right now it's been modernized, as you know, but in the end it's the same thing, the same security mechanism. And so how does it work? So when you guys click on the right button and you say run, as administrator, there's a little shield that comes up, and the system will be given the following manner of the user. If you guys belong to the administrator, you'll be able to have these rights, and there'll be the yes and no message. And if you're running this as a user of the administrator group, any process, with integrity, and if there's a default UAC policy in place, then you'll be able to have a bypass. So this means that when we do a bypass, what we can do is to bypass this UAC tab. There's a series of binaries in the system, and let me tell you the story right from the start. This is in Windows Vista, and people were criticizing this mechanism because for every attempt to elevate these rights, there's the yes or so.
Se acordarán, ¿qué hizo Microsoft? Rebajar un poco la política por defecto, ¿vale? ¿Y qué es esto de rebajar?
Here you see there's an apart from this auto elevate, there's also event visor, and the UAC will not come out. Why? Well, because the manifests of these binaries in Microsoft are signed by Microsoft have a parameter that's called auto-debate, auto-elevate. So if you belong to the administrators group, if you run one of these binaries, the UAC doesn't show up, doesn't jump out because it's a Windows binary. It's been signed through Windows and Microsoft, and there's this auto-elevate true element to it, so we trust that the binary is not going to do anything bad. So what's a UAC bypass? So this is a way to make sure that these binaries that are assigned and that won't make the UAC jump will run what I want to run. So just to try and have these binaries, and by interacting with them, to have them run the code I'm interested in. If a high integrity process, if there's a code that's run, where's that code going to be run in a high integrity? So on a high integrity, so the UAC bypass is precisely this, to run whatever I want to run without having the UAC jump up in the screen, on the screen. So this is what it looks like. We see this CND, and somehow this is run in a high integrity context. Logically, you may tell me, well, yes, but if I'm physically in front of the machine and I click on the right button, run as administrator, and then I click yes, fine. Well, yes, but the scenario where we're going to be working is an intrusion into a system that is Microsoft, where we have a remote connection. This is where we need to do this UAC bypass, as long as the conditions we said at the beginning are met. So scenarios for running and rights elevation. We in a pen test, we access a Windows machine, and the committed compromise process belongs to the actual administrator. And here we have the maximum right. We can impersonate system or whatever. We can do anything in the system. But when you access a system, normally we're not that lucky. And Microsoft system, the actual machine administrator comes by default. Second case, compromise or committed process. We access the machine, and this belongs to the administrator's group user. Maybe the user belongs to an administrator's group. So if the UAC hasn't been modified, or its policy hasn't been modified, we have the possibility of bypassing the UAC remotely. I'm going to do it local, but you can do it remotely. And finally, the last case is this process.
Es del grupo administrador, que sería lo más seguro, levantar un servicio.
Here we have this compromised system. Here, this is a service with connectivity outside, and there's no right. Here we have to go to right scale. Here we need to look for other things, but we focus in the case in the middle, and this is what UAC-A-Mola is going to work. Different types of techniques in order to do UAC bypasses. There's different techniques. The most common one, the one that's more broadly used, is the DLL jacking, and this is a DLL sequester. That is when a legitimate process reads a DLL. If instead of reading the original one, it reads mine, it will run the code that I will have included in that DLL. So the target, the objective, will be a process that will elevate my DLL, and this process will have been this binary will have been signed by Microsoft with a elevate to true. So all these codes will be elevated through a high integrity process. So how many binaries do you think there could be in a Windows system that will meet these conditions? You'd be surprised. And this is quite simple. The idea is quite simple. But in practice, it's a different story. So now we're going to do a little test, a guided test, so that you may see what this is all about. So we're going to go in here.
A ver. Vale, vamos a poner el process monitor.
So there's the test monitor in order to see the events that are taking place in the file system. So, like I'm saying here, I've filtered. Can you see it well, more or less? Do you want me to? I have a binary here that's called something launcher, MGMT launcher. We're filtering this binary, and when in the path it says .local, let's run it so you can see it. MGMT launcher.
Cuando sale el escudo, significa que ese proceso.
You see it like this. This means that this binary is going to be run in a high integrity process, and the UAC should come out, should jump out. But it won't.
¿Veis? No ha saltado el UAC. Lo que ha saltado aquí es varios resultados que me dicen que el binario ha ido a buscar en esa ruta.
Several results that say that the binary through this route was looking for this file and didn't find it, this folder and didn't find it. So why? Well, let's remove the filter and see. No, what it is actually looking for is this here, precisely. It's going to go for the local .x. It's going to go into a repository that Windows systems have, and this is where DLLs are stored. The binary may look for the DLLs in the route that's been configured, but if it doesn't find them, you'll go to the store, to the warehouse, and find them. It's like a DLL warehouse. If you don't find them, you go here. So here, if opens up a door, and if we keep building this route until it finds the DLL we're interested in, it will find this one before the legitimate one. So what do we say? We say that there's a process that's being run under high integrity, and the DLL is run. That is going to be run in the same context. It is with high integrity. This is where the code is going to be run in a context of high integrity. So let's try it. Let's see.
Otra herramienta.
Here I have another tool that will tell us.
El Process Explorer nos va a decir.
The Process Explorer will tell us about the integrity context under which this is being run.
Ahí lo he cerrado, no, está aquí. A ver, lo voy a ejecutar otra vez.
Run it again.
Ahí está. Este es. Vale, aunque no se llame comp porque al final lo que se ejecuta por detrás es el MMC, es la consola de gestión de Windows. ¿Vale? Pero es un snippet.
It says high integrity, so if I can make sure that this binary will run my DLL, the result will be this bypass. So the curious thing, the funny thing is
esto. Vamos a poner esto un castellano. Con esta herramienta, el SIG-check, podemos...
With this tool, we can see what I was telling you earlier, the auto elevate true and signed by Microsoft. But we have seen the result. We see that it's being run in high integrity, but the UAC didn't jump out and the screen didn't come out. So if, as an administrator, I run this, I'd see the UAC jumping. So let's do this. I have a note here, a script. It's available in
una PowerShell. Y yo voy a ir contando
in GitHub, and I'm going to tell you what we do.
Os explico brevemente.
Very briefly, the aim
crearnos.
So the goal is to create these folders that we see here, and lost them. I don't know where they are. Let's see if I can find them. And then the folders that were coming behind.
Vale, es decir, vamos a crearnos primero esa carpeta.
So we're going to create this folder. There's something 32, and you say you're crazy. I bet you won't be able to create them with GMT launcher, with a local snippet. And then we create this nomenclature. So just Microsoft Windows, all this folder, and inside of it I put in the DLL, but not the legitimate one. We are gonna put in one with a code that we're running. We put it inside of it in order to save some time. We have it here already. And I'm going to show you the DLL. It's a 5Ks. The legitimate one isn't 5Ks, and this is done with Metasploit. And here I let me show you what I've done. We have this folder here, and inside it we have the root and then the DLL. And it's ready, and now what I do is to copy this. Where? To System 32, and you may say you're not going to be able to do it. And System 32, I try and copy this folder. And remotely I'd get access denied message, but here I'm physically and I go continue, and that's it. But let's imagine that you're working remotely. You're doing this in remote mode. And how do you do this? There's in Windows, this is good for Windows 7, 8, and 8.1, and it's a binary that's called USA. USA, have you? USA. Windows Update standalone installed. It's a binary that Windows has, and if we look at it, it's got a little shield. It means that it's run under high integrity context. And if that is the case, well, can it be copied in System 32? What does this binary do? Look at this. Here's the binary.
Fijaros aquí, extract.
Extract.
El instalador extraerá
The installer will extract the package contents.
le podemos pasar un fichero K, que eso al final no
So we'll extract the package context to the destination folder. It will compress it and put it in the folder I'll
me falta. ¿Qué ocurre?
tell him to install it in. And it's going to copy it, and here we're going to generate a file. Let me.
Vale, también tengo la chuleta por aquí, lógicamente, para ahorrarnos tiempo.
I have a template here already in order to save time.
El resultado de esto,
The result of all this is this.
dentro de esto que tengo,
ICAB. Instead of here, there's this other folder with everything we've been building, and we use this in order to decompress it with WSA, and it's going to store it where I'll tell it to store it. I know that I'm driving you nuts with all these pictures and everything, but you know, I need to tell you how it's done.
pone la ruta completa.
Complete route.
Vale, entonces tenemos aquí el fichero, le metemos el parámetro.
Here's the file with the struct parameter.
Marcamos system 32.
System 32.
Parece que no ha pasado nada.
Apparently nothing's happened, but there it is.
La hora coincide con la hora del sistema que tenemos aquí.
That
Que esté mal.
coincides with matches what we have here. Here's the DLL. And now what we do is we take our Kali, and in order to make sure that we have this right this part, we figure a handler in order to get the reverse connection. This is a handler, and when we execute the launcher, MGMT launcher, will give us back this reverse thing. Okay. Nothing's run here. Actually, it has been run. If we go to the task administrator, we'll see it here. And here it is. Not that here you may say, I don't see the system anywhere. There's no, I don't see the system term, but I have the right to do this right here, so that.
Sí que hemos hecho el bypass del UAC a través del DLL Hijacking. ¿Qué ocurre? Que esta técnica funciona.
So this technique, this thing works very well. And Windows 7, there are many binaries that are susceptible to this, and same with Windows 10. Windows 10, you don't use the WUSA because they took out the extract parameter. But there's this other technique through the COM object, and I put them in IFI operations. But now let's talk about a different type of techniques we can use under Windows 10 in order to do these things.
Vamos a continuar. Y vamos a hablar de la técnica fileless.
So now we will talk about the file desk technique, fileless technique. This technique is about 1 year old, and there are 3 different filelesses that are now well known. There is something very good about this technique, because no file is in contact with the disk. In the case of DLL hijacking, the DLL needs to touch the disk. So in that time, the virus can get ahead and avoid that UAC bypass within the legal framework. But what we're going to do with the fileless is tamper with the Windows register. So by way of this interaction, we will see how UAC bypass can be done without any interaction with the disk, which is pretty interesting. Let's see it in practice. The first fileless that was launched was very popular, and as a matter of fact, Microsoft fixed the first one of them all because it was used in a malware campaign. We would have a file, and thanks to this, they could execute the malware with the highest level of privilege of rights. And Microsoft fixed all these viruses. Now you're going to see how it works on Windows 10. We have Procmon for this purpose. Let's see the filter, and now we run the binary. So this is the binary that contains the optional features, and here you have a whole bunch of results. And in the registry, we find a lot of instances with name not found. So let's go to the point. Let's focus on the problem and use yet another filter. Here we are. It's here you can see it. Here you can see the registration key that you are about to see in the register itself. This is the one that cannot be found, and I'm going to tell you a little bit how this works. When the binary is invoked, the process is created, it launches several queries, there are some branches missing, so they go to different branches, for example HCKR, where it looks for more information. That's how we found out that each user in HKCU can create any key whatsoever. So this process was run in a high-integrity process, and it was able to invoke code through some of those branches. It would invoke a binary. So since we look in HKCU first, you create the whole branch inside HKCU. It's a sort of DLL hijacking, but in the registry. So I create the whole structure and I input the binary that I want to be run. In this case, the key is here. Now we are opening software classes, and this we have to do it by hand. Of course, we can automatize it. I'm not sure that you're seeing it clearly. Let's magnify this a little bit. Open command. In other fileless, this would have been enough. For example, we could have the route C11MD with high integrity, but in this case, in the binary analysis, when we ran it, the branch was actually there. So we're not going to have the DSN not found message. So what is going wrong now is here, the delegate execute attribute. So it's actually finding this one, but not the other one. In this case, it was as simple as creating this. If you disassemble this with reverse engineering, you can see it very clearly. And here we type system32 cma.exe. So when the binary runs and it executes itself again, it's going to find this branch, and this is what it's going to run. So we have again another high integrity process, and whatever it invokes will be run in high integrity. Therefore, we have our bypass. Let's see it. Here you can see it. This is a CME, and the configuration thing isn't open this time. Now we're going to open a regular CMR. If I open a CMR with this user and I go to the root route, the access is denied, as you can see here, of course, because I haven't run the process as admin. If I use the console that I got with food helper, since this is a high integrity process that is invoking this CMD, I'm going to be able to overwrite the root. Here you can see it, and of course I can erase it. Now we are working on local, but you have to extrapolate this. Imagine you have a reverse shell. You are in a post-exploit phase, and you need to elevate that privilege, that right. These techniques, I think, or at least it was so a couple of weeks ago, it was possible to do this. And we can take advantage of these techniques for pen testing. This was the UAC bypass year. There were more than 10 different bypasses, so it is really a significant figure. I was going to show you another one, but we will leave it for the end. We are working on a tool called UAC-A-Mola, which looks like this. It looks a little bit like Metaxploit with this black console, and it's not really nice to the eye. But the goal is to follow the IDEM methodology. IDEM stands in Spanish to research, demonstration, exploitation. So this is what interested us, the research part, having an open project in a community where people could implement different modules in order to work with this. Having clear ideas about what UAC and bypass are, people could do their own research and identify new UAC bypasses and share them. So we worked on the architecture. It's quite a simple one. We have an interactive console that uploads modules. There are different sorts of modules. We have the investigation attack, but there are also some mitigation attacks that can be done easily. And in the attack, we focus on the most known attacks. We have, for example, Filclass. We have DLL hijacking. We have variable injection that we will see later on. So the different UAC bypasses are implemented here. What's interesting here is that an administrator could use this tool to test which machines are susceptible to a UAC bypass in a certain equipment and are not under control. In the investigation part, we try to automatize techniques. We know how fileless works, but if we automatize this, we can take a look at all the binaries that can end up provoking a UAC bypass. So this can be automatized to analyze all the registration branches and see if this UAC bypass can be finally accomplished. This is in the investigation part. Can we automatize the calculation of knowing how many bypasses are authenticated by Microsoft with auto elevate true? Well, this goes to investigation as well, and we continue adding more and more modules. And on Wednesday, as I said, it will be presented in the Black Hat in Europe. That is something that made us very proud, of course. Well, the language we used is Python. Well, people who know me know that I prefer Ruby, but we decided to use Python, and I'm struggling with it. We try to simplify it so that it would be straightforward for any of you to implement a module. So I will show you a module that implements a UAC bypass with the fileless type. It's only 3 or 4 lines, so you're going to find that pretty cool. Yes, it is. This is what a module looks like. What you are going to be tampering with is this. Before we saw the parent module, but you will get this. And here you need to just modify the module options, fill in the information such as in Metasploit, who is the author, the license, etc., and then the run mode, what the module is going to do when it is run. It is as simple as that. So this actually took us a lot of effort, particularly my colleague Santiago, who was here presenting a conference yesterday, and this is what we came up with. This is UAC-A-Mola. It is available in GitHub. It's ready for download. This is the console, and before we get inside, I want to show you the foot helper.
Fijaros, la mayoría son prints.
Look at this. Mostly it's all about prints. Here you can see 1, 2, 3 lines, 5 lines in total. The rest are just prints. There are more prints than lines implementing the bypass. It's true, this bypass is easy to implement, just a few lines, and it integrates with the framework also. So now let's make a test. Let's try a different module I have here. Well, before we do that, well, these are the different framework options. We will add more and more. But before going to the attack, I want to show you the investigation part. Here are the modules. Look at this one, for example, which is trying to look for binaries in the system. They vary in Windows 7 or Windows 10. So it looks for the binaries that may be vulnerable to a potential UAC bypass. We are going to run it now so that you can look at it in practice. These are the different options. Here you have the description and the output. We are going to have a bin list file output that match with the Microsoft authenticated files and with the auto elevate true. This is currently running, as you can see, and as a result, we will end up with this document. Here we have 60 that fulfilled this condition in Windows 10. So if you add modules to this, you can broaden the investigation, and you can automatize these investigations too for DLL and jacking. So this is what we are after. We are looking for more UAC bypasses. On the other hand, we also have modules, DLL modules. When you run a list of processes, you can verify which ones are looking for the local folder. So if they look for it and it's not created, this is a way of introducing a DLL jacking. There are different modules. We will continue adding documentation for you to check. And before we move any further, you are going to see the results. Here you have them on Windows 7, 8.1, and 10. Auto-elevate binaries are here. It varies according to the OS. And for example, food helper cannot be found on Windows 7 because it appeared on later versions, but this is the number of fileless files we found for 4 and 3. And in the case of DLL jacking, things get a bit more complicated. 12 out of 56, 15 out of 60, and 13 out of 60. These are interesting results that will be published in a paper very shortly. So we're going to leave the screen, and I'm going to show you a different UAC bypass that works with variable injection. Well, program tasks have always been a weakness in Windows, have always been, and they continue to be a weakness for Windows. There is this task that you can see on the screen. Well, of course, you can also open the task executor. What's interesting about this task? I got the wrong one, sorry. What's interesting about this task, as I was saying, is this. High level of integrity. It's been executed at a high level, and they realized there was something very simple about this task. Look at the actions. When the task is run, this is what is executed. Look at what is highlighted in the screen. So this is an environment variable. Someone thought, what if I inject a variable here? Well, it turned out that the environment variables are located here. Exactly here. So if we type here buen dia or wherever, we launch the task. The task can be invoked by any user, but in this case it is executed with a high level of integrity. That's the good thing about it. We are going to do it now with UAC-A-Mola. I'm going to show you how it is implemented.
Bueno, os pongo la lupa aquí, sí, porque...
Let's magnify this a little bit.
Esta es la implementación del run.
This is the implementation of the run with 3 commands. We open the environment branch of HKCU, we create environment D, and here you can read instruction. This is actually what you are setting in this part here. In our case, we open a CMD, and if you take a look at this, this is REM. When you type in REM in CMA, it is just a comment. This says that whatever is to the right is a comment. Why? Because we want to inject it here and have the part on the right commented. Then we just have to run the task, the silent cleanup task. The module is only 3 lines long. Let's test it. Here you can see we can change the instruction and set a different instruction if we want it. So when it is launched, you can see it on the screen, cyber2.txt, and here we can write anything we want inside the root. For example, cyber2. Instead of elevating a CMD, we elevate a CMD in a power set that executes something against my Kali. We return an interpreter, and it is as simple as that. So, in the end, UAC-A-Mola allows us to research, investigate. I'm not going to show it on the screen because it takes a while before the searches are automatized. It takes a few hours. The modules are easy to implement, as you have seen, so I hope you play with it. I hope you work on it a little bit. And as a conclusion, we can say that this year we've seen very interesting things in terms of UAC bypass, for example, fileless. If the bad guys use this, we are in trouble, of course, but if we use this in order to improve security, we can only get good things out of this. The tool is open and available in GitHub. You can download it, improve it, do whatever you want with it. So I hope you test it, you play with it. And if you have any questions, well, I'm here and I'm going to be around. So feel free to comment everything you want to share. And it's